Hey guys, this is Josh here with Trillium Wild Edibles, and today I want to bring you an identification video on common mullein or Verbascum thaspis, as it's known by its scientific name. The plant that we're looking at with this very tall flower spike and these yellow flowers is common mullein. There are a couple different ways that you can tell this, but one of the first and foremost is its very distinct flower buds with these flowers growing on it. It grows in a very long spike, just like you can see on this plant right in front of us. Now, if we look very closely at these flower buds on this flower spike, we're going to notice that they look somewhat kind of like hops flowers. They're very bulbous, and they almost look somewhat like Brussels sprout as well. And however, this is just the flower buds, which means that the flowers, like this little yellow one, are going to be coming in and out. Now, the mullein flowers really interestingly, and I say that just because its flowers will pop out at different times. You won't always see all of the flower buds on one spike flowering at the same time. As a matter of fact, I never have. You usually will find the flowers growing somewhat like this, where you're going to see a few flowers at a time. And once you get towards the very top of the flower spike, you're going to notice this conical-like point that it comes to. Now, one thing you're going to notice if you look up close at the flower buds, you're going to notice that they're also very hairy. They're kind of a light green in color, and they're very, very fuzzy. Now, that's an interesting feature to this entire plant because the entire plant has this fuzz from the stems. Whoops, I just lost a flower there. From the stems to the flower buds and the leaves. The only plant part that doesn't have those fuzz is the actual flowers themselves. Mullein's flowers are very distinct in the sense of their yellow color. There are a lot of plants with yellow flowers, so just because you see a plant with the yellow flower like this doesn't mean it's mullein. However, if you see this distinct stalk, this distinct flower stalk, then it most likely will be a mullein. I don't know of any other plant that has this distinct flower stalk. And the flowers, being yellow, they will have 5 petals, just like you can see on this flower right here in front of us. Granted, it's starting to close up now, but it does have 5 petals. You can even see the pistils or stamens inside of the flower there. You're going to notice a lot of ants. Main reason for that is that ants really love mullein for some reason. I don't know why, but they absolutely adore it. A couple interesting things to know about mullein is one, that it really loves clearings and it also loves poor soils. This plant will generally grow well where not many other plants will. It's also a biennial, which means that in its second year it will go to flower like we can see right here. So what that means is this plant is 2 years old, whereas if you look around you might find a basal rosette of mullein. Now right here is a really good example of a basal rosette of mullein leaves. They're very large and they're very fuzzy. And they grow in a rosette, which means they grow in a circular pattern around the stem. Now this is a first-year plant, so it's not going to flower this year. But that gives me an idea of when to come back if I'm looking for this exact plant, or if I see this plant and I don't see any flower stalks in the area, then that tells me all the plants in that area are 1 year old. So that's kind of good information to know. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about the flower buds and the flowers themselves of mullein, let's talk a little bit about its leaves and the features of its stem. Now, one thing to note about the leaves of common mullein is that they are very large and ovate in shape. They're somewhat oval and they will come to a little bit of a point, so you might describe them as a really big lance point, but they're so large they're usually described in your field guides as ovate in structure. They are simple along the margins, meaning they have no teeth. There's no lobes or any discerning features upon the sides of these leaves, just like you can see on this leaf in my hand. However, these leaves are very fuzzy, they're very soft, they feel somewhat like felt or velvet. So this is a really nice feature to this plant because there's not too many plants that I know of that look just like mullein with this feature. So that makes it an easy plant to identify. Another good use about these leaves with them being so soft is that they make excellent toilet paper. Mullein is commonly referred to as cowboy's toilet paper because of how soft these leaves really are. They feel like big pads between your fingers. They're so soft. Another common name for this plant is lamb's ear because the leaves are so soft they remind people of the ear of a baby lamb. Now here's a really good look of the underside of one of the leaf nodes where it joins the stem, and here you can see those little hairs and those little fuzz running down, and you may also see part of the leaf margin coming down the stem just like this. And on this plant right in front of us, This runs all the way down the stem. See, there's the margin of a leaf, and we follow that margin down, and then it connects to the stem. Now, once we get down towards the bottom of a second-year plant, we're going to notice how large these leaves can actually get. If you look at this leaf in my hand, it's probably about 2 to 3 times larger than my hand is. So this is an extremely large leaf, and this is very indicative of common mullein. The leaves of common mullein usually grow in an alternating pattern up the stem. However, they can appear opposite, and this is a really good example. But if we look closely at where these two join the main stem, we can actually see the one on the left joins the stem at a node much higher than the one on the right. And then if we continue to go down the plant, we're going to notice these alternating leaves from one side to the other, all the way down the entire plant. Mullein is a very tall growing plant. It can grow anywhere from 6 to 7 feet tall, and this plant in front of me is close to about 4.5, 5 feet tall right now. It's probably not going to grow much larger just because of where it's at. However, on the sides of the roads, you might find them quite a bit bigger, like I said, up to about 7 feet. Now, you may also be wondering what it is you can do with mullein. Mullein is a very popular medicinal plant. It's actually native to Europe, and it's considered an invasive plant here in the United States, but it is a very useful medicinal plant. This plant's very mild in its flavor. It's a very good expectorant, which means it helps to expel mucus from the lungs and the mucous membranes like in your nose and things like that. This is really good for clearing up chest congestion. This is also really good for any respiratory ailment because it does have some immune boosting properties to it as well. So whenever you want to use common mullein, what parts exactly would you use? You can use the entire plant. The entire plant is usable from its flowers to its flower buds to its stems and its leaves. Its root is even usable as well. You can use this plant to make teas or tinctures. You can use it to make salves if you really wanted to. It doesn't have much of a use for salves. Its main use is for teas and tinctures. And to make the tea, you can either use the fresh plant or the dried plant. And the same with the tinctures. You can use the dried or fresh plant for tinctures. So that's really nice because it has a lot of multiple uses and you can use it different ways. There's not a specific way to use it as in it has to be dried or it has to be fresh. However, it is better to prepare the tea from dried mullein and to make the tincture from fresh mullein for some people. But it may not be that way for everybody. So it is worth it to experiment just a little bit. So I thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned just a little bit of something. If you want to learn more about edible or medicinal plants, please make sure to subscribe.